What is going on, guys? Welcome into the Blitz podcast. And, like we said on Thursday, covered in the Thursday Night Football episode, we are finally here. It is week one. We already had a little taste of it. We got a full slate on Sunday. We're all very excited. I've got Sam here with me. He's been on a couple times. Sam, how are we doing?
I'm doing all right. I am incredibly excited for the weekend of football ahead. Been very excited since probably, mid-March, but here we are, finally at the doorstep.
Yeah. And like I said, we got a little taste of that on Thursday Night Football. Had a good-ish game, I would say, in my opinion, like a 6. But was a close one. Lions end up winning. But we covered that on the Engage 8 episode. So if you want our analysis on that, go check that out. But we're going to hop right in here. And we're going to jump right into your Cincinnati Bengals and some big news coming out of Cincinnati on Thursday night. Right as that game kicked off, Joe Burrow is going to be in Cincinnati for the long haul. Shocker. On a 5-year, $275 million deal, the most expensive deal in NFL history. It's not like this is a controversial contract. He fully deserves that money. He is in that top 5 where anybody in the top 5 at their position is going to reset the market at that position. And like I said, he totally deserves it. So do you have any thoughts on this? Again, it's not like you have too many criticisms of it, I'd imagine.
I've never been more excited for my team to get worse in a way, to essentially make it harder for us to get a lot better. But it was a cathartic night on Thursday to not only have that Joe Burrow contract right as the game started, but to watch, the new rivalry and the Chiefs lose week 1 was there is no better feeling. There is no better feeling. But yeah, he deserves that money. I'm shocked at how much it was. A lot more than Herbert's,
Yeah,
wasn't it? It was almost like a
I
full.
think Herbert's was 262 and a half. So then Burrow's
Mm-hmm.
getting about an extra 2.5 a year, 2 mil a year extra. But again, he deserves it. I don't know when the next time somebody's going to reset the market, because it's really like Trevor Lawrence is the next guy, and that's not till the end of this offseason. I don't think Tua is going to get a contract higher than Burrows. It might be somewhere lower in that tier, but with his injury stuff, I think they might just almost kind of play it by ear as far as a contract extension goes for him. But let's actually talk about the game that they're going to be playing this week, and they've got quite the opener going up against the Cleveland Browns, a division rival, a team that we think is going to be pretty good this year. We did have them in our top 10 in the Blitz Pod Power Rankings. Cincinnati opens up as a 2-point favorite on the road, so good for them in that department. Couple things to watch here. Burrow is returning from an injury. He suffered a calf injury, I believe, early August, maybe late July. I specifically remember you calling me with like the most despairing look in your eyes. And but he's back. He's, everything's fine. I thought the AFC North was opening up there for a second, but that's okay. Chidobe Awuzie coming back as well from injury. He suffered I believe, an ACL tear last season, is going to be playing his first game. And I believe he got injured in Cleveland. So he'll be opening right back up where he left off. Then on the Cleveland side of things, this is a big game, really, because Deshaun Watson last year did not look very good. Through 6 games, was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, and obviously at one point in time was that highest paid player in the NFL, all the guaranteed money. Also adding in Elijah Moore here on this offense to help out at the wide receiver 2 department. That's been a problem spot for them. And then on the defensive side, you made a lot of additions, adding Zadarius Smith, adding Shelby Harris, adding Dalvin Tomlinson to really shore up that front 4. And I don't know, I'm much more excited. You obviously lose Jadeveon Clowney there to Baltimore in the division, but I felt very good about this team, and that's like why within the AFC North we're having kind of problems being excited, because it's so loaded.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of right now it looks like every single team in the AFC North would be shocked to just split. I think that's the most likely outcome for everyone. Every team made big additions to be better this offseason. And, Cleveland, shockingly, as of late, has made a lot of steps forward. I personally love the Elijah Moore addition. You had Donovan Peoples-Jones there already, and you're adding another legitimate threat. Um, you do lose Kareem Hunt as that RB2, which is going to be something that they need to kind of look at. And I really want to see how that's going to affect them in the passing game because I know he's a big pass catcher out of the backfield. It's going to be very, very interesting to see them in the first real tune-up session of the season.
Yeah, and the big matchup that I'm looking out for is this Cleveland front four that has been revamped with those guys that I just mentioned against this Cincinnati offensive line that has been revamped, but it's been a 2-year project. You know, they kind of revamped the interior 2 off seasons ago, adding Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, those guys, and then they go out and they have their big money signing of the offseason in Orlando Brown coming in here. Kind of going to be interesting to see how that fares with him, but I'm very excited to see how that matchup works out. That's at least what I'm looking for. Is there any matchups you're looking at here just for week 1?
Um, Definitely probably going to be the wide receiver corner matchup. You know, Denzel Ward wasn't expected to play for part of the week and then came back off that concussion protocol. So him lining up against it'll either be T or Jamar, I assume, just kind of alternating back and
Yeah.
forth. So I'm excited to see that.
I'm sure, and Greg Newsome, if I remember correctly, Greg Newsome might honestly line up against T. Higgins. Maybe I'm getting him and Eric Stokes mixed up, but I think Greg Newsome's kind of bigger. But yeah, obviously these wide receivers are going to be quite the task for Cleveland to handle on the flip side of that. So, real quick, let's just pick Cincinnati -2. How do we feel about that? You think they cover?
I know that we've had there have been a lot of recent struggles against the Browns. What was it? We're like 6-1 in the Burrow era. Um, I think coming off the injury, it's going to be tough. I'm probably going to go 27-24, maybe even just 21-24. We probably will pull it out by just a field goal. It'll look very close. It'll be a competitive match, but I do think the Bengals pull it out.
Yeah, I'm on the flip side here. I think Cleveland's going to end up winning this game. Sorry. But they are at home. They do kind of have this momentum rolling in. Cincinnati has started slow generally these last few years. And with the injury to Burrow, he hasn't really had the full training camp. That's not something I'm super worried about. But I think Cleveland also poses a lot of bad matchups for them. Like you said, Cleveland has been very good against Cincinnati in the Burrow era. So I do think Cleveland is going to end up pulling this one out. Moving on to our next matchup, and this is a little less intriguing. We have an NFC South showdown in the Carolina Panthers going to Atlanta to play the Atlanta Falcons. A couple things to watch here. You got 2 of really the most exciting rookies, that at least in my mind. Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick in Carolina, and then my guy, Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. The main thing that I'm watching here is going to be Bijan Robinson. I really want to see what his workload is going to be like, especially with Arthur Smith and the guys they've already got in that room, Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson. You also have Kyle Pitts coming back from injury. This will be the first time he's played since last October, suffering, I believe, a torn ACL, torn Achilles, some season-ending injury. And then also a completely revamped defense for Atlanta. You add in Jesse Bates, a bunch of guys on the front line, David Onyemata, Calais Campbell. They've made a lot of additions to this defense, and I think that Atlanta's kind of getting ready to not go all in, but it just looks like they're making developments towards being better. And then just on the Carolina side, we do have some injuries there. DJ Chark already listed as out. Adam Thielen listed as questionable. So it looks like Jonathan Mingo may have a chance very early on to solidify himself. Get quite a few targets here. There's one room for Carolina that you don't want getting thin. It's this playmakers group because it's already pretty bad, and you're now rolling out probably the best or the worst group of wide receivers that's going to be playing on week 1. Do you have anything you're looking out for in this one?
Not a ton. I mean, you're kind of spot on there. This is a less interesting matchup. You could later on down the line, if one of these teams has strung together quite a few wins, be like, oh, maybe this should have been pivotal for them, an interdivisional match. But I don't think so. I think with the talent around Bryce Young right now, they're not in a very good position to go win with Atlanta. They are a quarterback away. I feel like if they go and get someone, they can be a lot better. As you said, going in the right direction. So I think this is just going to be a very interesting matchup to just kind of see what they're looking like almost going forward, even in week one.
Yeah, it's not like a true test for either one of these teams because they're both kind of in the same tier. But in the NFC South, each win is going to be critical because, quite frankly, none of the teams in the NFC South, in my opinion, are going to be getting a lot of wins. So, like, these divisional games could take in a lot of the win totals for these teams. Atlanta favored by 3.5 points here. Do you think that Atlanta can cover spread, or do you think Carolina maybe can make this a little interesting?
I it's going to go down to quarterback play for the Falcons. I think the better quarterback's going to win this. Honestly, I think Carolina might pull this one out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been outspoken about what I think about guys on Atlanta's roster that wear number 7. I hope they run the ball 40 times, and I think they'd honestly be better for it. We had Desmond Ridder as our as our 32nd ranked quarterback. Not a whole lot of faith in him from us. From myself personally, I also had him at 32. So Desmond Ridder, not exactly going to be a key to victory here. Now, if he plays well and maybe it's hard to do this week 1 show without like looking full scope for the season because we don't have anything to go off of. So like we just keep going off of these narratives of like the future. But yeah, I mean, not a whole lot of faith in Desmond Ridder. I do think I think Carolina covers. I think Atlanta wins though. Okay. It's going to be a close one, like you said. It's going to come down to quarterback play, but I think Bijan maybe gets in the end zone twice. Just saying. Not biased at all. All right, moving.
Of course not.
No. Moving on to our next one. Now we have an AFC South matchup here with the Jacksonville Jaguars Jacksonville Jaguars going to Indianapolis to play the Colts. A couple interesting things here. You obviously have Anthony Richardson's first game, another rookie quarterback here. And then also no Jonathan Taylor for Indianapolis. That's going to be the case for the next 3 weeks. And then Jacksonville, they got another newcomer coming in here in Calvin Ridley. Was a midseason acquisition last year. Obviously was suspended, didn't get to play. And now he's here. You have that Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley combo. You still have Christian Kirk. You still have ETN. A lot of fun weapons on this offense. Is there anything you want to point out in this matchup?
It's going to be really, really interesting to see what Anthony Richardson looks like. There's been a lot of these mobile guys that have been pushed out early, these mobile projects who haven't been very good. You can honestly look at Josh Allen in Buffalo. Those first 2 seasons looked pretty rough, and he usually turned it on. So I do want to see what he's going to look like. And also Calvin Ridley. Taking a year away from football, or was it a year
and a half? Because he did the it was some mental health. He had an injury and then he had some mental health issues, so he took a break from the team. And then that offseason he got suspended, missed all of last year. So yeah.
Yeah. So but a lot of word out of camp says that he's really good. That he's already taken that wide receiver 1 role away from Christian Kirk. So I mean, all for it. Calvin Ridley seems to be going in the right direction. Good for them. But yeah, it's going to be Jacksonville by a mile.
Yeah. See, the thing was with Richardson was like, okay, I liked Indy because they were a team that had a quarterback in place, quote unquote, with Gardner Minshew who could start. He could give you 2 to 3 weeks. It seems like Anthony Richardson's won this job, so good for him. I like him. I had him as my QB2. I just don't know if right now they're going to have enough. The main matchup that I think is going to be exploited here is those weapons that we talked about with Jacksonville, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, ETN, Evan Ingram, going up against this Indy secondary, man. This Indy secondary is in trouble after trading away Stephon Gilmore. Isaiah Rodgers gets suspended and then cut. So they are now down 2 starting corners from last year in a secondary that already was not very good. I'm taking Jacksonville on the spread here. I think they win this one by at least a touchdown, honestly. if you're Indy, you're just kind of hoping you see flashes from AR, in my opinion. Because if you don't, and you got no Jonathan Taylor for the next few weeks, it's gonna be hard to fill the seats. Like it's
There's not a whole lot to be excited about in Indy outside of Anthony Richardson. You look at the defense. They still have DeForest.
Yeah, they got DeForest,
right?
and they've got Shaq Leonard who's coming back. Um, they've struggled for edge help for so long. They've struggled for corner help for so long. I always point this out about Indianapolis, where they have this weird obsession with like getting like all of their best players are at the least valuable positions: running back, linebacker, guard, slot. Like all of their good players are at low value positions, and all of their high value positions aren't very good. Quarterback, historically for the last few years, they've been going cheap at and have gotten the results. Wide receiver, same thing. Tackle, same thing. Corner, same thing. And edge. I mean, they took Kwity Paye in the first round, but he hasn't really panned out. So, yeah, I mean, are you with me? Jags by, at least 5.
Yeah, I really wouldn't be shocked if this isn't a double digit win for Jacksonville, even this early in the season.
Yeah,
yeah,
not good. Moving on here, we have Tampa Bay playing the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. Minnesota 5.5-point favorite here. Couple things to watch here. Brady is gone, and guess who's here? Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. That is man, if you're a Bucs fan. I mean, you got the Super Bowl out of it, but Jiminy Christmas, that's going to be really tough to watch that last year. And even though their offense or their team really was not that good, the quarterback play was still very good from Tom Brady last year. It was just everything else around him was awful. You really hope that could pick back up, because you don't even get that this year. You got Baker Mayfield in here. I can't imagine that he's even half of what Tom Brady was last year in like a best case scenario for Baker. Mike Evans also was announced, not announced, but was kind of confirmed a little bit ago. Bucs and Mike Evans could not reach a contract agreement. So it looks like this is going to be his last year in Tampa Bay. I would definitely keep an eye out for a potential trade happening between those two. It's just a matter of, can they get more than what the compensatory value would be for Mike Evans? The compensatory pick value would be. I will tell you this, man. If you watch Thursday Night Football, you know of at least one team that needs wide receiver help that would be willing to trade away a 4th or a 3rd round pick for Mike Evans.
God, please no.
That would be pretty scary,
Please,
and that would fix a lot of the Chiefs' problems, man. Because I know that they did it last year with just Kelsey, but man, especially if Kelsey's going to miss some time. Even if Kelsey doesn't miss any more time, it would really help to get a Mike Evans in that room.
I mean, not to go on a full Chiefs tangent, but they definitely have needed wide receiver help, and they made no moves to go help at all that wide receiver room. I mean, you've got how many first or second year players?
Yeah, they've got Rashee Rice, rookie, Sky Moore, 2nd year, Justin Ross, 2nd year. Mm-hmm. And then MVS. We'll talk about the Chiefs next week or something. Then on the Minnesota side of things, not a whole lot of change here. You do have first-round pick Jordan Addison coming in. You also have 2 first-round picks, or I believe they were kind of first-round picks last year. They traded back. Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth, who missed a lot of time last year, they're going to be coming back, and I believe they're both healthy. So got to be excited about that for Minnesota, but not a whole lot of change coming into this season. It's just a matter of, can they prove that they earned that record last year? A lot of people, were holding up the dollar bill to the light on what happened with their season last year. They won, I think they were 11-0 in one-score games. It's probably not going to happen again. I will say that, but I think this Vikings team is better. I just feel like they're going to play better football. What do you think? Just Vikings in this whole matchup.
Yeah, Vikings did make a move to essentially cover up the quarterback play. I mean, Kirk Cousins is as middle of the road as it possibly gets. So going out and getting Jordan Addison, a legitimate wide receiver too. You do lose Adam Thielen. Does kind of suck to have that veteran presence there, but it's all right. They did. Who did they lose on the defense? I can't remember. It was a big
They lost. I
name.
mean,
Was it
They lost
Barr?
to Darius, so that happened. We talked with
Yes.
that with Cleveland. They also lost Alvin Tomlinson to Cleveland. Patrick Peterson to Pittsburgh. Eric Kendricks to the Chargers. Jesus.
Yeah, that would be my biggest concern for them. Would be that defensive matchup. I mean, mind you, it is against a Baker Mayfield led Tampa offense, which should be something to watch. But there's still optimism for Minnesota. I still think they're probably a 9 to 10 win team in that NFC. But yeah, you just got to hope for a
Yeah.
little bit more legitimacy from
Yeah, and
them.
you got to also hope for health on that offensive line. They've had some injury problems in the
Mm-hmm.
past. They were healthy last year, and I think that's can their success last season. A lot of that can be attributed to that health on the offensive line. Not a lot of teams have that luxury. 5.5 points here. Do you think Tampa can maybe cover, maybe win this game, or do you think Minnesota can? I mean, it's essentially a touchdown. 6 points could get there, but.
Um, if we get Baker Mayfield from Cleveland, like the
I was
early
about to
part
say
of
which
Cleveland,
one,
I
because
think
we
they can make
had
it
like
close.
every other year was good,
Yeah.
good Baker from Cleveland, and then we had 2 years of really not good Baker.
Yeah, if we get that playoff run, Baker, where they
Stop.
went up and but yeah, I think they can make it close. Probably not. It's probably going to be 7 points for Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Tampa. Can't imagine you're going to be getting a very inspired Mike Evans out there, but the rest of this roster in Tampa is good. Like they very well could have done, like I don't know, go find somebody different than Baker. I know that there wasn't a whole lot of options. Like I thought that Geno Smith made a lot of sense for them because the same guy, like the offensive coordinator from Seattle from last year, went over to Tampa Bay. That's like the optimism around Baker is like if he fixed Geno, maybe he can fix Baker.
Another one you could have went out and got for a fourth round pick would have been Trey Lance. That would have been mine. That I would have been like, at least add another body to that QB room who is not Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask,
That is,
who
yeah.
was a top 3 pick not too long ago.
Yeah, it's a good point. And like, I don't think that Baker plays all 17 games this season, whether it be due to injury, whether it be due to just like, we're not winning any games. We have to do something. Let's see if Trask is worth a shit. If Trey Lance comes in there, you have your quarterback. And this roster, like, there's still remnants left over from the Super Bowl team of good players. The wide receiver pairing, how long that's going to be together, we don't really know. Tristan Wirfs is still here. You have a franchise tackle. On defense, you have a very good, a very underrated secondary with a lot of above average players. Levante David and Devin White are still here. Shaq Barrett's still here. So Vita Vea is still here. There's a lot of talent on this team, and I honestly do think that they cover against Minnesota. I think that secondary can help neutralize the Minnesota passing attack. And the defense, I don't think, is going to provide a whole lot of restriction, the Minnesota defense, for, like, maybe we do see a good Baker Mayfield game and we're doing week 1 overreactions. I'm so excited for the overreacting week 1 podcast. I am going to move those powerings so much because we need clicks so bad. We're going to make so much.
Most outrageous.
Oh yeah, it's going to be awful.
Most outrageous
It's going to
takes
be
ever.
awful. All right, moving on to our next one. God, we are. I was looking at the slate and I was like, this is a really good week 1 slate, and we've gotten a couple stinkers here. We got Saints Titans in the Superdome. Saints are 3-point favorites here. A couple things to watch. Saints, Derek Carr coming to New Orleans after a very, very bad season in Las Vegas. Michael Thomas coming back. Maybe, who knows? He may not even finish the game on Sunday. Kendre Miller is questionable for this one as well. Obviously, Alvin Kamara is suspended for 3 games to start the season. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with that running back room, at least for these next few weeks. Maybe if Kendre Miller really overtakes Jamal Williams. And once Kamara comes back, I don't know if Jamal Williams would even have, like, other than goal line stuff, really have a whole lot of snaps. But same thing goes for Kendre Miller. Then on the flip side of that, Tennessee. Tennessee really one of the most unchanged teams from the previous season. They added Peter Skoronski on the offensive line. They also drafted Will Levis, but as far as this game goes, I don't think we'll be seeing any Will Levis play. So not a whole lot to talk about here. They didn't really lose anybody. They didn't really add anybody. What are your thoughts just on this overall matchup? Do you got anything to watch for?
I really want to see the Michael Thomas and Chris Olave pairing again. For the first part of last season, the 2 games that Michael Thomas did play, it looked pretty good. That's exciting. Also, I want to see if a scenery change for Derek Carr, away from Mike McDaniel now, away from Las Vegas, if maybe that helps him a little bit. I think so. I mean, Derek Carr led that Raiders team without Devontae Adams to the playoffs 2 years ago. So I think there's a little bit of optimism.
Okay, so I'm definitely going to say that you're taking the Saints -3, especially at home. Then in that case, okay. See, I have been very outspoken with my criticisms of Derek Carr as a player. I've never fully seen it with him. There was a 5-day stretch in the end of 2021 where I was like, dude, he needs to be in Pittsburgh. But we were, desperate for a quarterback in a bad quarterback class, and I'm like, Derek Carr is the option. And I'm glad we didn't do that, because we would have given up that first-round pick to get Derek Carr, that eventually became Kenny Pickett, and I'm glad we didn't do that. But he ends up here in New Orleans on a humongous contract, by the way. 4 years, $136 million. That was like nobody talked about that. Like, it just felt like he signed here for like the Baker deal. Like, he signed a legitimate long-term contract. Derek Carr is the franchise quarterback in New Orleans for the next few years. I know that there was some the void money thing. New Orleans is going to find a way to get out of that contract and sign another quarterback to that contract somehow, because that's what they do. But Tennessee's feisty, man. Go ahead.
You gotta really think Tennessee's getting a little older. I mean, Tannehill is up there in age and also really regressed at the end of last season. Also, Derrick Henry is old.
Yeah, I guess that is the talking point. Is we've done it with Travis Kelce for the last few years, and at the running back position, it's 100%. When is then Derrick Henry going to start slowing down? We didn't see any signs of it last year. We thought it was going to be last year, especially coming off of the injury in 2021. But we didn't see it. It didn't happen.
The first 2 weeks were, especially as the Derrick Henry fantasy owner last year, those first 2 weeks sucked. And I ended up trading him, and then he went off right after.
That's how
that.
it is,
It was
though.
really annoying.
That's what happens. You trade him, he goes off. That's what it does.
But in terms of coaching, Vrabel, I think, will outcoach New Orleans. I think it's going to be a decently close matchup for 2 mediocre teams. But I like New Orleans a bit more.
You know what? I think I'm going to take Tennessee out right here. I think that they're going to win this game. I think they're going to go to New Orleans. Look, one of the most underrated things, and I talked about this in the Saints episode, the Saints lost almost their entire front four. They lost, and that was already a thin group. They lost something like 800, 900 snaps of guys that played last year. They lost on Yamada. They lost the other edge on that other side. I can't remember his name.
Davenport.
Yes, they lost Davenport. It's just Cameron Jordan, really. Like, that front four, taking away Cameron Jordan becomes the worst front four in the NFL. I know they've got Demario Davis back at the linebacker position. They've got a good secondary, but that defense I'm worried about. And guess who's playing running back for the other team? Derrick Henry. So I think this could be a very big Derrick Henry day, quite frankly. So, I can't imagine you're having to choose between starting Derrick Henry, but for DFS people, I think Derrick Henry is an excellent play here in week 1. And with that said, obviously, like I said, Tennessee outright. You've got New Orleans at least covering. So moving on to the next one, and this one is near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to tell you my pick right now. We have San Francisco coming in to Acrisure Stadium to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm just going to tell you right now, Steelers are going to win this game. It's going to happen. Deal with it, cope, place your bets, do whatever you got to do, make arrangements. They're going to win this game. They're not going to cover. They're going to win this game. San Francisco is a 2.5-point favorite going into Pittsburgh. Things to watch here. San Francisco, we did have an injury and a contract dispute where it looked like maybe neither one of those guys were going to play. Nick Bosa gets a big deal, becomes the highest paid defensive player in NFL history. 5 years, $170 million deal. He just got activated as of about 20 minutes ago. He is good to go against Pittsburgh, but has not played preseason, did not do any training camp stuff due to the holdout or hold in, whatever one he was doing. So he's probably going to be a little rusty, to be quite honest with you. Like, he hasn't played football since February or, January. Whenever the NFC Championship was.
January.
And George Kittle is the injury. He's questionable with a groin injury for San Francisco. And Brock Purdy is healthy. I know that the verdict or the main thought heading into this season was he's going to miss a few weeks with that UCL injury. He is back. He's fully ready to go. Wheels are off, and Trey Lance not here. So it is Sam Darnold at QB2, and that is it. And with the injury problems that San Francisco has had recently, not entirely sure if I would have even traded Trey Lance, much less just for a 4th-round pick. But on the Pittsburgh side of things, I mean, what could go wrong here? You got Kenny. This is, I think, honestly, behind, I don't know. Maybe it's just that I'm getting targeted ads here. But outside of Detroit, I think this has been the most hyped team this offseason, at least late offseason. There was a surge of Steelers hype going into August. The media cannot shut up about him.
For some
reason. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But a lot of that is centered around Kenny Pickett and how well he played to finish last season. A lot of people don't realize was the 3rd highest rated quarterback per PFF in the second half of the season in games that he played behind Joe Burrow. And it was either Lamar or Patrick Mahomes. But, yeah, I mean, we're splitting hairs here. Yeah.
Lamar.
And then went out and put together a nearly flawless preseason, had a 95 PFF grade in the preseason. Again, I know it's preseason. Perfect passer rating. He was fantastic. It's something, though. And then also in Pittsburgh, you got some new rookies coming in, a great draft class. Broderick Jones, Joey Porter, Keanu Benton, Nick Herbig, for God's sakes. Looks like the next TJ, if you don't mind me saying. Darnell Washington at tight end room. But what do you want to talk about with this matchup? I've gone on way too long.
I was going to thank God that we were finally done with the Steelers propaganda that we've had to sit through. This is going to be a good game. I think this is a sleeper for game of the week. Steelers at home, I think that really is going to help them a lot, especially week 1. They have played really well. They played really well against the Bengals, won against us week 1 last year. I am questionable about San Fran. Is Brock Purdy actually that guy? Did he look limited, in his playing time last year? Pickett also, I've been completely separate of him. I have been very, very high on Pickett. I wanted him in fantasy because he was the only year 2 quarterback who looked like he was going to take a step. I am sadly, very sadly, going to go with Pitt. I think they are going to be very good coming out of this.
Come on. But yeah, and also you got a pretty much revamped secondary here. They lose Cameron Sutton to free agency. Akilla Witherspoon gone as well, but you add in Patrick Peterson, who had a very good year, kind of surprisingly, with Minnesota. And then Joey Porter as a second-round pick, guy that a lot of people thought we'd take at 17. We get him all the way at 32. Omar Khan masterclass per usual. Dude, if you can't tell, by the way, I'm extremely excited for this Steelers season. I understand that we are in a loaded AFC, and it's going to be very hard because, even if Kenny Pickett is everything that I hope and dream he is, he's still probably the 8th or 9th best quarterback in this conference. So makes it a little hard to get there. But, dude, I'm seeing AFC championship predictions. I'm seeing... I heard Bill Simmons put a substantial amount of money on the Steelers getting the 1 seed.
Dude, it's week 1, Jaden. Let's calm down.
Me, dude.
Way to pump the brakes a little bit.
We're going for 7. We're going for 7.
The hell up.
All that to say,
we gotta calm down.
All that to say, we are going to win this week. I'm taking the Steelers outright here. Just real quickly to touch on San Francisco, though. I didn't think Brock Purdy, he put up box score stats. Don't get me wrong, but Every quarterback does that with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Trent Williams, and Kyle Shanahan. Like, that is the perfect situation for a quarterback. That's why every time that a quarterback becomes available, everyone is deathly scared that San Francisco is going to make a move for them. Every time. And, like, dude, I'm telling you, let's just, again, this is not week one talk. If Kirk Cousins happens to land in San Francisco after this season, I don't know how they do that. I mean, they do have $41 million in cap space despite having the highest paid player at like 6 or 7 different positions. If they were to find a way to get Kirk Cousins will win an MVP in San Francisco. It's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that rumor that in 2017, the pick that they traded down with Trubisky with the Bears so the Bears could get Trubisky, and they took Solomon Thomas. Really, really nice back-to-back 2 and 3 there. They offered that number 2 pick to Washington for Kirk Cousins, and Washington didn't even return the call. The number 2 overall pick for Kirk Cousins, and they let him walk a year later for nothing. So, yeah.
Ooh.
Washington Commanders for you, ladies and gentlemen. But again, just to wrap up here, Steelers are going to win this game by a bajillion points. Right into Washington. Boom, transition. Commanders are going to be playing the Arizona Cardinals. We do have Washington favored by 7 points at home. This is a stinker. Cardinals looking like they're going to be one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NFL. They are starting Josh Dobbs for this season, it looks like, after cutting Colt McCoy for some godforsaken reason. And if they were going to do that, I don't know why you just don't go start Clayton Tune. Because you're like, okay, well, maybe we get something out of the rookie, and no, we're not going to do that.
Just
Yeah.
gotta let them die. We'll be fine.
They're one heck of an organization. They go from Cliff Kingsbury to Mr. Who took the bus in today, and Jonathan Gannon. That is the main talking point here, is the addition of Jonathan Gannon. That this is going to be fun to watch. Let me just tell you. They tampered, by the way, to hire Jonathan Gannon, to get an interview with him. They had to lose a draft pick so they could hire Jonathan Gannon. This guy. Who's got fire in their gut? What kind of speech is that? And my thing was, and I was telling this to you all the other day, if that was what the Cardinals, like the social media intern, chose to put on Twitter, what do you think they didn't use? What kind of shit did he say that they didn't end up using?
He's definitely got to be a character. Like, this is
It does. It feels like the Russell Wilson
like an
thing.
individual.
It feels like a bit. Obviously no Kyler Murray, at least for the next few weeks. They're like so wishy-washy on if they're going to play him this year, if they're not going to play him this year. Then on the flip side there, Sam Howell is effectively a new quarterback here. He played one game for Dallas last year, or against Dallas last year. He is the QB1 now. A lot of hype around him, to be honest with you. I mean, I think a lot of people are starting to see it. I liked him. He was my QB3. Showed a lot of signs of promise in his, I believe, his junior season, or the year before he came out at North Carolina. Then the offense got taken away around him, and he falls all the way to the 5th round. Washington does a good thing and picks him. So he is now going to be their QB1 for the foreseeable future. Chase Young, shocker, is out for week 1. I believe this is with a neck injury, though. So something new at least, but I know specifically Blitzpod member Kane Schwartz is not a huge fan of Chase Young anymore, and is just kind of ready for him to get out of there, which I don't know if that's going to happen. I think he might just kind of play this year out, and that's it. But really the most important thing is not on the field, and it's Dan Snyder is no longer the owner of the Washington Commanders. It is now Josh Harris, who owns a few other teams. I know he owns the Devils. I think he's got a minority stake in the Sixers. And there seems to be a new direction, man. It feels there's new vibes. There's just a different energy in Washington. What do you have to say about this Super Bowl preview, really? Somehow, in two NFC teams.
Definitely the NFC Championship
Yeah.
preview that we're staring at. There's not been a ton of optimism out of Washington for a long time, and I feel like this is the first time that we're really seeing it. Even after the year they went to the wild card and they had that really good game against Tom Brady, there's not been a lot out of there that's positive. And finally, you seem to figure out quarterback. I mean, he Was it he that was voted as a
I think he
captain, or
was.
was it?
I feel like he was. I can check
Yeah,
that. But
and a lot of people were like really excited about that. Like he was unanimously voted. You still got Terry McLaurin there. Jahan Dotson's going into his second year. Um, you re-signed your D tackle. Is
Jonathan
it
Allen.
Payne, I believe?
Well, I think
Is it?
Jonathan Allen one of them got re-signed this offseason and the other one got re-signed, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
mid-season or before that.
I thought it was Payne
It
that
may
got
have been. It
re-signed
may have
all
been.
season. Yeah, but regardless, you go up and you reassure your defensive line outside of Chase Young. Um, yeah, there is more positivity around Washington than I personally have ever seen, aside from like RG3. Like this is finally beginning to look up for them. And Arizona,
On the flip side,
at least you got you got two first round picks next year. Um, yeah, just good
most
luck.
importantly, you have Houston's first round pick, which I
Yes.
was maybe I think we might actually have. God, I'm so good at transitions. I should have waited. Um, they could have given up Cleveland's first round pick. I think Arizona said no, we will not do it unless it's your own, and good for them because Houston's probably not going to be much better than Arizona, which means you could have a shot at two of the 1 and 2 in a class with Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison that completely turn this franchise around. We're talking about them with all this doom and gloom. If they add just Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison, they don't make another pick, they don't make another move. We're feeling a lot better in Arizona. And not to
Yeah.
mention, if you do choose Caleb Williams at number 1, you have a very, very good asset in Kyler Murray that can be moved for picks, players, whatever you want. I think that Washington, like, you want to talk about week 1 overreactions? Washington is going to stomp the shit out of Arizona. Sam Howell is going to have I think he throws for 3 touchdowns, maybe 300 yards. And, like, the hype train for Washington is going to be taking off after week 1 because people just letting it fly over their heads that they are playing the worst team in the NFL. Just
Yeah.
as a mediocre team, like it's not like the Bills are going into Arizona and beating the shit out of them, and then everybody's hype on the Bills. Like Washington, not exactly a top of the league team either, but maybe people will not start to think that they're on the same level as the Bills, but going up a tier if they just kick the shit out of Arizona. I don't know.
Yeah. Going into kind of like picks, I would really be shocked if the Cardinals scored at all. Like maybe a field goal if they get a fumble recovery, anything. I would be shocked if they scored at all.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm putting together a parlay for this week, Steelers money line and Washington plus or -7 is probably what's on it. At least right now, I feel very good about those two. And the Cardinals better hope that they're bad and that the Texans are bad, so they can get those first round picks transition into Texans Ravens. I'm so good at transitions. Ravens favored by 9.5 points in Baltimore. I swear to God, I don't get it. Why do the Ravens get the worst team in the league to start the season every year? It's every single year. They started against the Jets last year. I think they started against the Jags the year before that. The year before that, it was the Dolphins. Before they had two. That was the year that they tanked for Tua. They beat them 59-3. Like every year they have this. They get like the worst team in the NFL. I don't get it, but.
Every time.
Yeah, so on the Baltimore side of things, obviously the biggest thing there is Lamar does end up signing back with the Ravens. He's here for the long haul, the next 5 years on what was temporarily a record-breaking contract. You also add in wide receivers here for the first time in a while. Zay Flowers, first-round pick to go along with Rashad Bateman, and then OBJ, who is already on the injury report. He is listed as questionable for tomorrow's game or Sunday's game. With a ankle injury, right? I feel like it was an ankle.
Yeah, it was either ankle or part of it will say neck.
Maybe that was
I
the
don't think
Chase
that's
Young
right.
thing because I remember thinking Chase Young. I was like, what the hell does he have a neck injury
Yeah,
for? But he was,
might have
yeah,
gotten
he
them
was
mixed
limited
up.
on Thursday. He's going to be questionable for Sunday, so we'll see if he goes. Mark Andrews also questionable for Sunday. They've been very quiet about what this injury is. They're not really talking about it. They're just kind of like, he's going to be okay.
I I thought it was
Yeah,
hamstring.
but they
Wasn't it?
Harbaugh was like very, very short when asked by
Coy about it. Hmm.
reporters, and then Marlon Humphrey is out for this game, so already dealing with injury trouble in Baltimore. We've heard this one before. Could be not good very quickly. And then on the Houston side of things, you do have two of the most anticipated debuts. From the number 2 and number 3 pick in this draft in C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. On you got something to watch for on either side of the ball, man. I loved Will Anderson. The decision to go trade your first round pick from next year to go get Will Anderson in addition to the number 12 pick was certainly a choice. And you honestly could have probably just taken Will Anderson at 2. And there's a world where C.J. Stroud's available for you at 12. It's not a very common world, but you could have maybe traded up to like 9 to get him or something like that. But I don't work in front office. So that's really all it is to watch for in Houston. They got a bit of a revamped offensive line. What are you looking for in this one, other than maybe a Texans upset?
Yeah. I feel like Will Anderson hasn't been talked about at all. He should be exciting to see. He's like the only defensive player aside from that cornerback. I can't remember his name.
Stingley?
The one aside from Stingley. He was like mediocre all last year.
Yeah,
too.
well, and the thing, like, he wasn't good, and not that really people were like harping on him, but it's just that Sauce, who was picked a pick after in the same class, was so good that it's kind of hard to like look at Stingley and be like, okay, well, maybe there's some optimism here. It's just like nobody cares at all. And I care because I love Derek Stingley. Had him in front of Sauce Gardner. I think I had him as my number 1 or 2 player in that class, so I don't know anything. But I still like him. I still think he could be good. I mean, how many corners can you name that came into their first year and just like balled out immediately? Like, corners usually a position that takes time to get accustomed to, so...
But I mean, there's building optimism in Houston. There's always the possibility that T. Higgins doesn't sign back, and I've always been a person who thinks he's going to go to Houston. Like I've had this thought for years that we weren't going to re-sign him because of Jamar Chase. He's going there, yeah. But it's just kind of a question of how much is Baltimore going to beat him by. Sadly.
So the question is, do you think that Houston can make this a close? Can they keep it within 9? No, yeah, I don't think so either.
No. It's going to be double digits. Stroud is going to come out of the gate. You got to hope that he at least doesn't throw 2 to 3 picks.
Wow. I mean, I'm not a Stroud guy either, but Jesus. The one thing that I would say is, look, like, while this wide receiver room in Houston is probably the worst in the NFL, you're not gonna feel it this week because the corners in Baltimore, Marlon Humphrey's out. It's really Rocky Sin as CB1, Jalen Armour-Davis. It's not pretty. The rest of the defense is fine.
But I mean, you're Collins.
Yeah,
and
like that is now a neutral matchup.
Nope, John Mechie's out.
Oh, okay.
Yep, John Mechie's out now. So I mean, your primary receiving target's going to be Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah, I guess big headline. Watch out for Dalton Schultz here in Week 1. Yeah, I'm taking Baltimore to cover here. God, fuck this in Baltimore. Okay, all right, moving on. We have. I honestly think this is low key one of the more fun, or at least storyline ridden matchups that we have here in Week 1, and it is the Packers and the Bears in Chicago. 2 quarterbacks with a lot of not controversy, but just a lot of talk around them. Like, Jordan Love is coming in here to replace Aaron Rodgers. This is the first time that he is, fully the starting quarterback without Aaron Rodgers on the roster. This is his team now. And then on the flip side, same thing with Justin Fields. They had an opportunity to take Bryce Young, move on from Justin Fields after a better season, for sure, from Justin Fields last year, but was still one of the 2 to 3 worst passers in the NFL last year, had one of the 2 or 3 worst passing seasons, at least on a per-game basis. And he just really ran the ball a lot and had a lot of rushing yards. So people were excited about him.
Running back.
But they add Darnell Wright in the draft. They also add DJ Moore in the weaponry department. So a little bit of excitement there. Not for me. I don't think the Bears are going to be good. Let me preface this by saying I think Packers are going to win this game. Honestly, I think the Packers are going to win this game by 10 plus points. I think Jordan Love comes out and makes a statement. Now, the issue with that is there is no Christian Watson for Green Bay, which means it is Romeo Doubs, Samori Toure, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, the passing department. Hip hip.
Yeah. I mean, you still got Aaron Jones.
Yeah, you got, and I didn't name them on purpose because it
Dillon.
takes away from the effect, but you know.
So I think that Justin Fields can take a step. I don't think it's going to be enough of a step to even really warrant him getting a whole lot of conversation that he was getting from last year. You do bring in a really underrated thing was bringing in DJ Moore in that trade. That was fantastic. A true wide receiver one. Mooney is still there, but he wasn't that guy. I like some of those moves, but a lot of the moves on the defense, he had $280 or $250 million in cap.
Oh.
Essentially just flushed that down the toilet.
They had 120, but that was still the most. I think 250
yeah.
million is the cap, but
yeah.
Whoops. It just happens to the best of us, just the old switcheroo. But yeah, that was my biggest criticism of the Bears, really, and the reason why I can't get with them is because we walked into this offseason where they had the most cap space in the NFL, $120 million, the number one pick, and a quarterback that, was continuing to, made some strides last year, and there was a lot of hype around him.
Yeah.
And they walked out with DJ Moore, who is a wide receiver one. That's good. I'm glad you did that. Darnell Wright, I did not think was worth the 9th or 10th pick, whatever. I thought he was definitely a late first, early second guy, in my opinion. They also passed up on the possibility of getting Jalen Carter for a 4th-round pick and Darnell Wright. Jalen Carter was pretty much, you ask anybody if he was just a nameless gray face, Tomlinism, with no off-the-field problems. He's the best player in this class. And independent of position, he goes number one. And they passed on him for a 4th-round pick, gave him to a team that if they are worth anything, they're going to have to go through Philly. Can you name a pass rusher for the Bears? No, exactly. What are we doing, Chicago? I just think that it's a little overblown. Like, they had all these options to get better. They didn't really utilize them, and now everybody thinks they did. Like, Tremaine Edmonds they got, but you just traded Roquan Smith, so you didn't have to pay a linebacker, and then you go pay a linebacker. What are we doing here, guys? So, yeah, I'm taking Green Bay in this one. What do you got for the pick?
How large is the spread?
One and a half. So you might as well be just picking it straight up.
Yeah, no.
Chicago's favored by a point.
Packers are taking this. Yeah. Packers are at least covering by. Yeah. There's no way.
The Bears are favored by a 1.5 points. I mean, it's at home.
Bears are favored.
It's at home, so you get 3 points. I think Christian Watson may have moved that line because he is the 1-1. Like maybe the biggest drop off from wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 2 in the NFL is Watson to Dobbs. But
still,
I get it. I'm picking the Packers too, 100%.
Yeah, Packers all the way.
All right, moving on, we have the Raiders and the Broncos, another divisional matchup. We got a lot of these in Week 1. You helped put together the notes for this. I didn't think there was anything to talk about. I would love if my camera would focus. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
I would really love it if my camera. I'm not cutting this out, by the way. Hey, come on, buddy. Come on.
Just leave it in.
I'm gonna leave this in.
We will wait.
Please don't click off. Yeah! All right, let's go. Okay. So Vegas. A couple things to talk about here. This is Jimmy Garoppolo's first game as Raider. Their first time without having Derek Carr as their starting quarterback in 10 years. As crazy that is to say. Chandler Jones has lost his mind on Instagram. He can't seem to get into the training facility, so he's at Planet Fitness probably right now. And then Devontae Adams is still here. I think he came here with the excitement of like, okay, I'm going with my boy from college, Derek Carr. Derek Carr's in New Orleans now, and I don't think Devontae Adams is too keen and too happy with Jimmy Garoppolo here. They do re-sign Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs was part of that group of guys that, maybe they end up being a free agent after this year. They got tagged, and whole running back conversation, but he is back here. I want to say it was a one. I can't remember if him or Saquon got the 1 year. Where it's I think Jacobs got like a
No, both of them.
Okay,
Both.
they both got the 1 year.
1 year 12.
So and he also cannot be tagged next year. So Josh Jacobs almost certainly going to be on a new team next year because if they didn't want to pay him after the year he had last year, I can't imagine that he's as good as he was last year. He was phenomenal last year. He's going to be on a new team next year. So just something to keep an eye on. And then on the Denver side of it. What a train wreck this was last year, but you do have Sean Payton to come in here, maybe fix this problem. Fix the Russell Wilson problem, quite frankly. And then at wide receiver, you had a nice trio of Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, and Tim Patrick is done for the season in training camp for the second year in a row. Jerry Jeudy already dealing with injury problems, so that opens up. Marvin Mims, dude, one of my guys. I really like Mims, especially in this situation, man. The Broncos did not have a first-round pick this year. They did not have a second-round pick picking where they should have been picking, like in the top 5 of the second round. Their first pick was a 62, and their first pick was Marvin Mims. They picked a wide receiver 4, effectively currently a wide receiver 4, as their first pick in this new regime. Sean Payton's first thing was like, okay, we need we need Marvin Mims here. So I like Mims. I do. And then also in the running back spot, They have Javonte Williams coming back. He suffered an injury. They also bring in Samaje Perine as well. What are you watching for in this divisional matchup?
There was a really underrated signing by Vegas, in my opinion. They went out and got the best receiver that was available, which was Jacoby Myers, to pair up alongside Devontae Adams for however long Devontae Adams chooses to be here. Perine is also a very underrated addition as a Bengals fan. Watching him effectively take over RB1 was rough, but this should be a very interesting game. It's very weird to have two very mediocre teams be so interesting right now. But yeah, I mean, what quarterback is going to be just mid enough to wheel their team to a victory?
Yeah, and like obviously the conversation in Denver right now is what is Russell Wilson going to be this year? Because what last year was, I don't think anybody could have seen that. I know Tyler will say that he called that. He didn't call how bad it was. Like, you can sit there and say, like, oh, he's not going to be the guy from Seattle. You cannot nobody on earth thought that Russell Wilson would be one of the 4 or 5 worst quarterbacks in the NFL all season long. It's not like he played 5 really bad games and then got hurt and then played 5 really bad games. He played almost every game last year and was terrible in all of them.
There was the one game against Kansas City that he played where it was like halfway decent. Then he got concussed going on a QB draw.
Jesus. All right. Denver's favored by 3.5 at home. What do you got here? I just kind of want to move on.
Just want to get done with this. Probably taking Denver. Honestly, I think the better coach is going to win this. I think the better coach will wheel their team.
Yeah. And, fun, the best matchup here is 100%. This might be one of the best matchups of the week, at least wide receiver corner matchups. Devontae Adams, Patrick Surtain, that's going to be very fun to watch, in my opinion. I do... You know, I'm rocking with my guy, Jimmy G. I think they're going to come in, upset the Broncos. The Broncos, I don't know if it was an at home or on the road stat. The Broncos haven't beaten the Raiders since 2019, dude. That's Trump administration. That's pre-COVID. Like, that's a long time ago. 2019 was a long time ago. Trump administration. All right, moving on to the next game. We have Eagles and Patriots, the reigning NFC champions, versus the second to last place finishers in the AFC East. I'm smart. Super Bowl 52 rematch here. Seeing these two teams together on the graphic kind of gives me not flashbacks to that, but Jesus Christ. Things to watch here. Philadelphia, obviously the reigning NFC champ. We had them at number 1 in our power rankings. Didn't really get a whole lot worse. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, but they added a Javon Hargrave at defensive tackle. They added Jalen Carter at defensive tackle. They lose Miles Sanders. They replace him with DeAndre Swift. A lot of people would tell you that that's an upgrade. They lose Isaac Seumalo. Who cares? They just churn out offensive linemen like nobody's business. They're be absolutely fine there. This is a very, very, very good roster. Jalen Hurts does get that big contract where he was the highest paid player in NFL history for a couple days, maybe even a couple weeks.
I think it was one day.
No,
I really think it was like the next day.
I think
Or was
I think Lamar was, and then Hurts got it the next day.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. And then Herbert.
And then
Yes.
because Herbert was kind of recently. I don't know. I don't know. We don't know anything. Then New England.
He was at some point.
New England, not a whole lot to talk about here. They bring in Zeke Elliott late off season, bring him in to spell Ramondre Stevenson, to my unhappiness as a Ramondre Stevenson dynasty owner, but whatever. They kind of do a little switcheroo there. They let Jacoby Myers out the door, and they bring in Juju, and then this report just came out like 2 days ago that Juju's knee is like a time bomb. I don't know where that came from, but that could be bad for them, a team that's needed a wide receiver for the last 15 years. Just got their quasi wide receiver one, and his knee is a time bomb. Not good. And then they do draft Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. Fell a little bit, and good for them for picking him up. I think he's going to be really good there, like really, really good there, New England. What are your thoughts on this rematch of a Super Bowl recently?
This might be one of the most boring games of the year. I mean, or of at least week one. I mean, I don't see a world where the Patriots can do much against a really stacked and loaded Philly team. I mean, there's no one outside of Ramondre on this offense that I can really say with
Mike
confidence.
Gesicki?
I'm extremely excited.
Hello, Mike Gesicki.
I'm so sorry that I'm not counting the failed gritty man. I'm not.
Well,
the defense has gotten a little worse, but no, there's no way that New England can pull this off.
I do think. This is tough. Philly is favored by 4 on the road in Foxborough, but it's September, so that doesn't really matter. They do also have I don't know if it's at halftime or they're doing it pregame, but this is like Tom Brady being. I don't know if he's getting his jersey retired or he's getting enshrined in the Ring of Honor, but they are honoring him in some way in this game. Really,
it's Ring of Honor.
Really ironic that they happen to play one of the only teams that he's lost to in the Super Bowl in Week 1. Kind of shitty of Kraft to do that in a way, but they are honoring. They're putting him in the Ring of Honor. So, and he's the best football player of all time, and he's only been retired for about 6 months, and they put him in. So, damn, I think I am gonna go Philly to cover this. I don't think it'll be by much though. Like I think this will be within a touchdown type game. Moving on to my favorite matchup, or at least from the Sunday slate. Dolphins, Chargers. We saw this game on Sunday Night Football. Last year was a very good game, and honestly was one of the better games that Brandon Staley as a coach has put together. He, defensive-minded guy, has definitely been put into question quite a few times, but did a really good job of wrapping up their 2 playmakers in Miami with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Things to watch for here. On the Miami side, obviously not a huge of a factor week 1 as it is just for the entire season, but Tua, can he stay healthy? Can we see more from him, honestly? Can he continue to get better with this offense? You have the best, for my money, the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. I'm sorry. But those 2 guys are electric. Like, it doesn't get any better than those 2, man, and they're fast as shit. And they're just so much better than every wide receiver duo in the league. And then also they do bring in Jalen Ramsey, one of the biggest offseason acquisitions, but he is already hurt. He's probably not going to be playing until December here, so not really something to worry about in week 1. Justin Herbert does get a humongous deal. We've talked about the quarterback contracts here. He was, for a little bit of time, the highest paid player in NFL history. So got him locked up. Didn't ever think that wasn't going to happen, but yeah, it happened. Quentin Johnston, I just want to point this out, is wide receiver 4, their first-round pick from this past year. Did not get that wide receiver 3 spot over Josh Palmer. A little concerning, especially with the investment that they put into him, but not super worried. He does have drop issues, and that was kind of expected, honestly. And Josh Palmer is a kind of a good player. Then J.C. Jackson, their big off-season acquisition from last year, is coming back from injuries. He was atrocious last year, and not really because he's just like a bad player and he regressed, but I just don't think he knew what he was doing. It's a completely different scheme. He didn't have a whole lot of time to learn it, and to be as bad as he was, going from as good as he was, it's really hard to make that drastic of a drop off while like actually knowing what you're doing. So, what are you looking for in this one?
I'm honestly looking for J.C. Jackson against both of those receivers. He'll probably alternate, I would assume, unless they've
I think they'll put
track athlete out there.
Honestly, I think they'll kind of rotate him in when they can, because Michael Davis kind of developed into a good player, not late in his career, but I think that was his year 5 for him in the NFL. Played really well last year, and then you got Asante Samuel in the slot, who's like a smaller guy, who has the speed to match up with Tyreek Hill, but could potentially do that for them. But I think they honestly might, like, they're not going to force him in. I don't think he'll play like 100% of snaps. He'll get close, but
it's just going to be very interesting to see what he plays. Because I remember being on a massive hype train that we needed to go get him, because we at that time I wasn't bought in on Chido. We had Eli Apple was the other one. I hated Eli Apple.
Yeah, I mean, you guys and gave him to an AFC rival too. Or let him go to an AFC rival.
Yeah. But this should probably be a very, very good game. A lot of fireworks expected. 2 of the better offenses in the AFC going up against each other. It's going to be interesting to see the rushing defense for the Chargers. The Miami has put together almost a 3-headed monster of very, very fast people.
They tend to do that.
Sprint. Yeah, they've got, on top of the 2 wide receivers, they've got Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert. They went out and got A-Chain, and this is a team that could not defend the run last year. It's going to be very, very interesting to see if they can stop these really quick guys from getting upfield, getting into the secondary.
Yeah, and specifically, the Chargers are, I think Mitchell brought the stat up in the Chargers episode, they were, I don't know what the exact stat was, but against wide zone, they are like historically, and when I say historically, worst in like 15 years bad against wide zone. And the Dolphins are going to run that just as much as anybody. Raheem Mostert, Devon A-Chain are wide zone runners. Jeff Wilson, I believe, has already landed on IR. But, again, you have 2. I know. But you got 2 guys there. They'll be fine. Like, I don't think they're going to be hurting missing Jeff Wilson. Chargers are favored by 3 at home. So, neutral site, this is essentially dead even. What do you got here? Chargers win by 3? Something?
Mitchell's going to hate me. I'm going to go Miami.
Yeah, I think I will too.
I think the wide receivers are going to be too much. That running game is going to be too quick. I think Tua's going to do just enough, essentially, to get them there.
Yeah, and again, a healthy Tua, we remember, dude, the healthy Tua Dolphins last year were one of the 4 to 5 best teams in the NFL. And as long as he can be there, I mean, we had them before the Jalen Ramsey injury. We had the Dolphins at 5th in the entire NFL. We had to bump them down with that Jalen Ramsey injury. But as long as Tua plays the entirety of this game, man, I do think Miami at worst covers here in LA. Going on to the next one, another divisional showdown. We have the Rams going to Seattle to play the Seattle Seahawks. Things to watch for here. Cooper Kupp was never going to play in this game. He was out, but just a short bit ago was placed on IR, which means he's going to miss the first 4 weeks. Not good, man. That is not good. With a hamstring injury at 30 years old, and the state of this roster generally, if Cooper Kupp's not going to be here for 4 games, maybe even longer, the Rams, shocker, are in trouble. Stafford is back. He missed the end of last season. They saw a couple different quarterbacks. Baker, Bryce Perkins, I believe, played some games for them. They brought in Stetson Bennett. I can't believe that's the first thing I'm bringing up here, but that's really their most exciting rookie. Then they do lose Bobby Wagner in the middle. They lose Jalen Ramsey. They lose... That's pretty much it, because they only had like 5 good players and they lost 2 of them. So it's Matt Stafford coming back from IR. It is Cooper Kupp on IR and Aaron Donald, who's still here for some reason. And then in Seattle, Bobby Wagner is in Seattle, back in Seattle. Probably going to be, we talked about Tom Brady with the Ring of Honor, Bobby Wagner going into the Ring of Honor in Seattle pretty quickly after he retires. Future Hall of Famer in his own right. Then on the offensive side, really, this is just draft class for Seattle was fantastic. Yet another masterful class here. Masterful class. They draft Devon Witherspoon at 5. I loved him. I thought the Cardinals should have taken him at 3. Like and I honestly think the Cardinals would have taken him at 3, or at least they would have given it some deep thought if they couldn't find a trade partner. But they do get Devon Witherspoon at 5, and then at 20 they get Jackson Smith and Jigba to come play the slot here. Really, really muddling up this group of playmakers because they also bring in Zach Charbonnet to play running back. So you thought you had an RB1 in Kenny Walker. Now he's going to probably be splitting time with Charbonnet. You know, DK Metcalf looked like he was going to be the wide receiver 1 here as Tyler Lockett starts aging out of a legitimate role here. Now JSN makes things a little bit more interesting. And they also re-signed Geno Smith on a 3-year, $100 million deal, which is essentially like a 1-year deal. And it's just like, if you're good enough, we'll keep you around for that number. What do you want to talk about here with this game?
Well, first of all, I noticed I put the wrong cornerback in here for the first game.
It's okay.
But we're good.
It's okay.
We'll move on.
I know, I was reading through and I was like, who the hell is Gonzalez?
I had him mixed up. But yeah, I want to see how good this Seattle team, the secondary is going to be. I'm very excited for that. I think that's probably their highlight outside of the three-headed monster receiver. JSN almost wasn't expected to play.
Yeah, he had a wrist injury in the preseason, and they were deciding between surgery or not. But he is going to. Yeah, I think he is active for this one.
Yeah, so that is kind of really good thing if you're a big 12th man. The Rams, you got to blow it up. I think. I don't even think McVay's going to be there for very long. And the moment McVay's gone, I know Aaron Donald's gone. This is probably going to be the end. I think if Stafford's playing at a decent level, see what you can get for him with Cooper Kupp on IR. It's over, guys.
Yeah, and the problem
it's done.
The problem with that is, like, if Stafford plays well, it would honestly be smart for them to just shut him down because he's going to get hurt this year. I guarantee. I will put $100 to any. Okay. Maybe dial that back a little bit.
I was going to say, let's not go that far.
I would be willing to bet good money that he misses a game this year. If not more than that. He's got some serious, serious problems with his throwing arm. And, you know, at this age, it's kind of hard to recover from that. You've already got injury problems with Cooper Kupp. There's probably like 2 out of 10 people can name more than 3 players on the Rams defense. If 2, it may be just 1 out of 10 people can name that many. Like, the only reason I can name like 5 is because I did all the depth chart graphics and everything like that, so I get accustomed to names. But like, I saw like a tweet thread of something. It was like name 5 players on the Rams challenge, and some guy said I did name 5 players, which is great. But the problem is I'm a Rams fan, and like that is really the state of this roster. Is like even the fans of the team, like borderline diehard fans, don't even know who half these people are. It's because they've you go all in. And you use all your draft picks on you use 3 draft picks on one player, and then when they're gone, when Von Miller's gone, when Odell's gone, when Jalen Ramsey and all these guys are gone, and your first picks in like the middle of the 2nd round, 3rd round, you're in trouble pretty quickly. As far as roster building goes,
I'm really interested to see. I feel like it's going to be a historically long time for them to rebuild in a way.
But
like, I think it's going to take forever.
But the one thing is, and also let's just remember, we didn't really talk about this with the Panthers episode. Brian Burns was, I think they might have a contract problem in Carolina with Brian Burns. The Rams offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns last year. Their pick this year and their pick next year could be going to the Panthers just to have 1 extra player on this shitty team. And the Panthers, even worse malpractice, they turned it down to then not immediately extend him. When you turn that deal down, you immediately extend him because you just turned down 2 first-round picks and potentially are going to get nothing out of it. The Rams could be picking number 1 this year. That's a real possibility. And if not number 1, they could be somewhere in the top 3. The Cardinals maybe have those top 2 spots, something like that. They're 100% in the Caleb Williams
practice.
Dude, they're 100% in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, and I think they could really rebuild this thing fast. I mean, Caleb Williams, California, USC, going right to the Rams, who are like the hot team in LA now because they won the Super Bowl. I don't know. They're so far away roster-wise. I get it, but
no one's gonna out tank Arizona. I understand where you're going.
Dude,
Just
let me tell you,
God.
if Cooper Cup misses significant time, if Stafford gets hurt and Aaron Donald's not here, and I understand that it's hard because it is Sean McVay. Yeah, Sean McVay. I can't. Even if those things
Yeah, I
happen,
was gonna say, Sean
McVay
McVay's
over
gonna win every
Gannon,
game.
I can't. Okay.
Yeah.
Seattle is favored by 5. Oh man, I don't know. I don't know.
What do you mean you don't
I
know?
don't know, man.
We just spent
I know.
5 minutes trashing on the Rams, and you're saying you don't know about 5 points? I feel like that's almost as much of a steal as the Washington and Arizona one.
But McVay.
I'm. What do you mean,
I don't know.
McVay?
All right, fine. I'll take Seattle to cover.
Their wide receivers right now are Tutu Atwell and Ben Skoranek. Oh no, not Ben Skoranek. It's
Van Jefferson.
No, that's right.
And Van Jefferson.
Yeah. No.
All right. Fine.
No.
You're right. All right. Moving on to Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football, I feel like this is a bit of a disappointment for week one. I feel like it definitely should have been Dolphins-Chargers week one, but I understand it's the Cowboys.
Yes.
You're going to drive some Cowboys-Giants, division rivalry as well.
I would also even argue you could have done San Fran and Pitt.
And honestly,
My personal
Cincinnati,
preference.
Cleveland, same thing. But regardless, we do have Dallas versus the Giants. Giants are 3.5-point favorites here, which is questionable because, like the old saying is, you get 3 points when you're at home, which means that if this was on a neutral site, that means the Giants are a half point better than the Cowboys. What, dude? Let me preface this, and this will be going on the Blitz Pod hypothetical parlay. Cowboys are going to win this game by a touchdown.
Yes.
I think the Cowboys are going to win this by a
Yes.
touchdown. I mean, you look on the Dallas side of the ball. So Pollard is back. That was a conversation. They did lose Zeke, but Pollard is here. They've got some guys that can spell him. I think their running game's going to take a tick back, but I think they're still going to be fine. The number twos that they added, this is one of my biggest things this offseason. They added Brandon Cooks as a wide receiver 2. They added Stephon Gilmore as a CB2. And you could very well argue that he could be their CB1 this year, even at this age, over Trayvon Diggs. The thing that they were lacking last year was a true wide receiver 2. Michael Gallup just could not step up to the plate in that department. Now he goes back to being a wide receiver 3, which is a perfect role for him. He becomes one of the best 3s in the NFL. Cooks is one of the better 2s in the NFL. So you're very excited there. The offensive line is still intact. As of right now, I think I did see Tyron Smith pop up on the injury report naturally. Another thing we didn't talk Damn, I just realized that speaking of tackle injuries, I forgot Teron Armstead is out for Miami.
Yeah. Is he out or questionable? thought it
I
was
could have
just questionable.
swore he got listed as out, but you might be right.
I can't.
Yeah, you look it up.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that.
I saw him on that little injury
Yeah.
report.
But you add those 2 twos in there as well. You add Mozzie Smith to clog up the middle for Dallas. And then in New York, look, they made additions too. They added Darren Waller to be the wide receiver 1. He is also questionable. Shocker.
Teron Armstead is out, by the way.
So, do I go back on my Chargers? Do I go back on my Dolphins pick? With Joey Bosa?
No.
Yeah, I do. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are going to eat that offensive line alive.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Chargers cover here, and they're at home. That's going to be a good game, man. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah,
That draws it back
gonna
towards
stand
even.
by it. I am so sorry, Mitchell. But I'm standing by it. I think.
Fair enough. Okay, and then back to New York. Darren Waller going to be their de facto wide receiver 1 playing tight end. They really have a porous wide receiver room, but they do bring back their 2 guys. They had 2 big free agents this offseason, or free agents. Saquon Barkley gets tagged. They do work out a deal with him where he'll be here for at least the next year, and I think he's got the same clause in his contract that Josh Jacobs does where he cannot be tagged again. So maybe Saquon's on another team next year as well. But they do give Daniel Jones a humongous contract. Stop it. 4-year, $160 million deal. I think that they screwed up this offseason, in my opinion. I get that you want to tag your running back, but the franchise tag was invented for people like Daniel Jones, where you didn't see a whole lot for them their entire career to that point, and in their contract year, they play really well. Not good, not great, really well. And that's exactly what I would describe. Like, he also had Dable come in to help out. Would not be surprised if he takes a step back this year, which is why I think they're going to really regret this contract. I think they've got an out after year 3. So maybe that. I hate to sound like a Giants hater here. Just looking at the injury report, you also have Wan'Dale Robinson still out here. Waller, like we said, is questionable. The Giants, like we said, are favored by 3.5 points. Oh, also, hashtag #HeaTerp, Deonte Banks looking great so far for them. He's going to be the CB1 there for a little bit. They also extended Dexter Lawrence. I'm just coming off the cuff here. What? Giants by 3.5. What are we thinking about that?
No.
Okay.
Let's be realistic. My manager's a big Giants fan, and like I was talking to him, he still thinks they're to win, but I think that's just more delusion than anything. I as much of a Cowboys hater as I am for some reason, they should still win this game.
See,
handily. I don't think it's going to be.
I've never I get that a lot of people do, and I get that Cowboys fans are annoying, but as a AFC North fan, I've never really got that because, we live on the East Coast. We see a good amount of Cowboys fans just as there is in any place in the country, but it's not as bad as it is in, Texas or somewhere like that. I think the Cowboys are a Super Bowl team this year. I'm just going to be honest, man. I think that they have, quite frankly, I think they have just as good a shot as Philly to win this division. I do, because Philly was one of the most healthy teams in the NFL last year, and I can't see that being a thing again. Just law of averages, that's going to, bounce back against them. If they have a couple injuries, they could not be a 15-win team. I know. I think Dallas really does have just as good of a chance as Philly to win this division. I think they have just as good of a chance as anybody in the NFC to win the Super Bowl. As crazy as it is to say, after all the flameouts that they've had for the last 30 years in the NFC playoffs, dare I say it, I think this is the year. So, yeah.
So what are you predicting? Little Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, little Steelers Cowboys. I believe that was. I don't know what number it was, but I think it was the '95 Super Bowl. Different result though. We are going to win this one. And then we'll do. We were kind of conflicted on whether or not to do Monday Night Football. We'll do it just for the sake of if we don't record on Monday.
Okay.
But Bills Jets. This is the game of the week. I don't even think it's close. You have Aaron Rodgers making his debut, the biggest quarterback movement this offseason. Yeah, the biggest story of this offseason is Aaron Rodgers going to the biggest media market on the planet in the New York Jets to go with a very good roster with guys like Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Quinnen Williams. This is a good team, good roster. Really excited for the Jets this year. And then you have the Buffalo Bills on the other side of that. A team that has been in the spotlight the last few years, has been one of the best teams in the AFC, but has yet to really take that next step. They have not had a Super Bowl appearance. I know that it's kind of unfair to hold them to that standard in this AFC, but things to watch for. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers. Hooray. Aaron Rodgers is a Jet. That's literally as soon as he takes a snap on Monday night against Buffalo, he is the best quarterback to ever put on a Jets uniform.
He becomes their best quarterback. Yep.
Unless it's worse than Favre somehow. He's going to be the best quarterback to ever play for the Jets. Maybe not, obviously, the legacy, the Namath thing. I get that they hold him in their heart. But also, Breece Hall, I think, is still questionable for this one, so you got to keep an eye on that. Mm-hmm. He's coming back from the injury he suffered last year, but they do have Dalvin Cook, was not their big signing from this year because that was Aaron Rodgers, or trade, whatever. But it was a late offseason acquisition for them.
Becton's also
Becton's on the injury report. He's questionable. What else is new? This defense is quite frankly, it's loaded, man. They got one of the best front sevens in the league. We had them as our number one secondary. A little asterisk, though, because it was the Dolphins before Jalen Ramsey got hurt. But still is their number one secondary. They have probably the best pair of corners. They have arguably the best corner in the NFL, as crazy as to say, going into year 2 with Sauce Gardner. With the Bills, it's kind of business as usual here. Josh Allen's still here. Stephon Diggs is still here. The offensive line is still not very good. They have a deep front seven with a lot of pass rushers. Von Miller is returning from injury here. He's 34 years old, though. So, you got to kind of temper expectations, in my opinion. And then secondary, I think one of their safeties popped up on the injury report too. I believe it was Micah Hyde, popped up Wednesday or Thursday on the injury report. So something to watch for there. What are your thoughts on this Monday Night Football matchup?
Yeah, this has a very big chance to be game almost of the year. Maybe we're not that far into the season for that yet, but this is going to be terrific to watch. Real treat for Monday night. It's going to be interesting. You know, Dalton Kincaid slot wide receiver, by the way. So excited.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because you've got a really good matchup in Sauce and Stefan going up against each other. I mean, Gabe Davis is
existing
a
in
player.
New Jersey.
Yeah, but this should be a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun.
Yeah, and I don't have the spread in front of me. Bills are favored by 2.5 points on the road. That is insanity. I am 100% taking the Jets to cover. If not win this game outright. I honestly think, this front seven that the Bills have been kind of relying on recently, they do lose Tremaine Edmonds. I get that he's, Matt Milano is kind of like their guy. They think he's the better linebacker of the two. I get that, but you still had both of them. It's not like you're replacing one for one. You had both of them, and now you only have one. Von Miller, like I mentioned, is 34. To expect him to have a 12-plus sack season and be your number one edge rusher is probably an unrealistic ask. And Greg Rousseau's a guy I like Ed Oliver, but I'm not 100% sold on this being a very dominant group. Much that is the expectation, or at least the hope for them right now. It was last year anyway. Mm-hmm. And secondary's got injury problems. It's also aging a little bit. Those pair of safeties, I think, are both upwards of 29. And it just kind of feels like things are getting stale in Buffalo, man. I talked about it when we did the Bills. I think that if things don't go, if they don't make it to a Super Bowl, man, I honestly think Sean McDermott might be out of here.
Mm-hmm. I cannot wait for the overreaction after the Jets win.
Because
it's going to be so much.
Really, either way, no matter what happens here,
yeah,
somebody's going to be the Bills. We had Tyler for us rank the Bills at 16th in our power rankings this year, which is a little egregious, but I get he did have some intuition on the Broncos. He was lower on the Broncos than all of us last year, and he called that, but I can't see Buffalo being that bad. However, like I said, things are getting a little stale here.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I can't wait for it to be, oh my goodness, they really seem to not be able to get it anymore. If there's an off game from Stephon and Josh Allen, there's going to be a lot of questions to that AFC divisional round that they lost last year. To where that there was that, throwing the hands up on the sideline looking at him. So I can't wait for that, because I am going to pick the Jets. I think it's fair. I think at home, Aaron Rodgers is not going to want to disappoint. Garrett Wilson seems to be really bought into this whole thing. They seem to be really on the same page. I can't bet against him.
Just not picked up, but I just traded for Garrett Wilson in Dynasty, so I'm a happy camper because Garrett Wilson is one of my guys. I had him for my championship run last year in my Dynasty. I know you don't care about my fantasy leagues, but
yeah, let's move on.
Yeah. That's it. I'm going to close with I love Garrett Wilson, and I do think that the Jets win this game outright. I think that the hype in week one is just going to be too much. However, the same thing that you said about the media, the overreaction if Buffalo loses this game, if the Jets lose this game, oh my God, dude, you get Aaron Rodgers, it's all for nothing, blah, 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 blah. One thing I'm going to be watching for, specifically in this one, is going to be what is the usage of these running backs. If Breece Hall is ready to go and is active, how much are they going to be mixing him in? How much is Dalvin going to be playing? Even if Breece Hall doesn't go, does Dalvin have a 3-down role here until Breece Hall gets back? They still have Michael Carter. They still have Abanikanda, who they drafted this year. Yes. I thought that Dalvin going there was kind of a questionable decision in my mind. When Breece Hall comes back, he's taking your job. I think he probably could have gone to Miami and got the same amount of money or similar amount of money, had a starting role for this year. I don't know, but we'll see. I will be watching for that though. But that is going to do it for us, man. Week one, preview episode in the books, our first full-length podcast episode, at least since the rebrand, and our first full-length podcast episode of the 2023 NFL season. I'm excited, man. Steelers are going to the Super Bowl. It's going to be awesome. I'm so excited, man. We've got this.
Just had to throw
this
that
time
in there.
tomorrow. I was going to say
Just had to
this
throw it in
time
there.
tomorrow. I'll be winning all of my fantasy matchups. The Steelers will have won by like 30. I'm going to be feeling great tomorrow.
I want whatever you're on.
I'm riding a football high. It's back, man. We're so back. We're so back. But for myself and for Sam, we will see you probably Monday sometime to go over everything that happened in week 1 and overreact to literally every single result of every game. But for myself and Sam, that's going to do it for us. Peace.